The afternoon light filtered through the windows of Flower and Grace Bakery when Woojin stepped through the door. Not just any man, the Woojin, head of the Black Dragon Syndicate, the man who owned half of Gangnam's skyline and controlled everything that happened in Seoul's shadows. The man whose name made grown criminals check over their shoulders. He wasn't supposed to be there. This wasn't his usual territory. He'd only stopped because his associate needed pastries for a meeting, something sweet to soften a brutal negotiation. But fate has a vicious sense of timing, orchestrating the most devastating collisions when we least expect them. Lily had her back turned, arranging fresh croissants in the display case, the scent of butter and vanilla hanging thick in the air around her. Her apron stretched tight across her 7-month belly. The child within had been restless all morning, as if somehow sensing the storm about to break over their carefully hidden life. When the bell above the door chimed, she didn't immediately turn, just called out the usual greeting in her slightly accented Korean. "Welcome to Flower and Grace. I'll be right with you." But then the bakery went silent. Too silent. The kind of silence that falls when a predator enters a room full of prey. The kind of silence that makes the air itself feel dangerous to breathe. The kind of silence where even the hum of the refrigerator seems to hold its breath. She turned, and their eyes met across the counter. Time collapsed between them. 7 months of separation evaporated in a single heartbeat. 7 months of hiding shattered in one glance. His dark eyes widened, first in recognition, then in something that looked like devastation as his gaze dropped to her swollen belly. He stood there in his bespoke Italian suit that probably cost more than the bakery earned in 3 months. Power and danger radiated from him like heat waves off summer pavement. Lily. Just her name. Just 2 syllables from his lips, but they hit her like a physical blow. The tray of pastries slipped from her fingers, crashing to the floor in a symphony of destruction. Cream filling splattered across the pristine tiles like blood at a crime scene. The sound echoed through the bakery like a gunshot. 7 months of careful hiding destroyed in an instant. "You shouldn't be here." Her voice barely a whisper, her hands instinctively moving to shield her belly, as if she could somehow hide the evidence of what they'd created together. As if she could protect this child from the complicated, dangerous world of its father. His eyes never left her stomach. The expression on his face wasn't anger, it was something far more terrifying. It was recognition, calculation, possession. "Whose?" He stopped, started again, his voice low and lethal. "That child. Please leave." She was already backing away, looking for escape. Looking for the door that led to the storage room, to the alley, to anywhere he wasn't. Her grandmother had gone to the market. No one to witness this collision of past and present. No one to help her run. He moved faster than anyone his size should be able to. One moment he was by the door, the next he was around the counter, his hand shooting out to steady her as she stumbled backward into a shelf. His fingers circled her wrist, not painfully, but with enough pressure to make it clear. She wasn't going anywhere, not this time. His touch burned against her skin. Familiar yet foreign after so many months apart. After believing she'd never feel it again, the entire bakery fell silent. 2 men in dark suits had appeared at the entrance. She hadn't even noticed them follow him in. They stood like sentinels, and the few morning customers sat frozen with coffee cups halfway to their lips. Everyone knew who he was. Everyone understood the danger crackling in the air between them. In Seoul's underworld, the name Black Dragon Syndicate was whispered with equal parts fear and respect. And Woojin, he was the dragon itself. More ruthless than his father had ever been. More strategic. More terrifying. If you're feeling the tension in this moment, hit that subscribe button right now. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is where you are. Because this story is just getting started. And trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next. Now, I need you to pause for a second. Because this isn't just another story about ex-lovers running into each other at the grocery store. This isn't some romantic drama where a misunderstanding gets cleared up over coffee. This is about deadly family betrayal that shattered 2 lives. This is about xenophobia and cultural prejudice wielded like weapons. This is about a woman 7 months pregnant, hiding in plain sight from Seoul's most dangerous man, not because she fears him, but because she was made to believe he wanted her gone, that she was a liability, a foreign mistake he needed to erase to protect his empire. This is about forged divorce papers and calculated lies, about a younger brother who saw his chance to rise and took it, using Lily's deepest insecurities as ammunition, about traditional family pressure that treats love like a business transaction. Make sure you're subscribed, because what happens next will shatter everything. With Lily this close to delivery, the stress of this reunion could trigger complications that cost them everything. Life and death hang in the balance of this moment. And Woo Jin? He's about to realize that while he's been hunting for his missing wife across 3 continents, she's been hiding 3 miles from his headquarters, believing a lie that nearly destroyed them both. Let me take you back to understand the weight of this moment, the history that makes this chance meeting so explosive. Lily Morgan wasn't born into Seoul's glittering world of wealth and power. She was the daughter of American missionaries who'd fallen in love with Korea decades ago. When they died in a car accident during her university years, Lily stayed. Korea was home in a way California had never been. She'd built a life here, learned the language, absorbed the culture, created a small but successful business teaching English to executives. But no matter how fluent her Korean, no matter how well she understood the unspoken rules of hierarchy and respect, she was always a Oegukin foreigner. She saw it in the way older women looked past her on the subway, in the way men at business meetings directed questions to her Korean assistant instead of her. In the subtle ways she was reminded she would never fully belong. That insecurity, that constant feeling of being other, would later become the weapon Minho used to destroy her marriage. But she didn't know that yet. Not when she first met Woo Jin. She'd been hired to teach English to executives at a private corporate session. What she didn't know was that corporate executives was code for high-ranking members of the Black Dragon Syndicate. They needed English for international deals, money laundering networks that stretched. From Seoul to Singapore to San Francisco, Woo Jin attended one session out of curiosity. He'd been educated at international schools, spoke perfect English already. But there was something about the American woman who stood at the front of the room without fear, correcting the grammar of men who could have her disappeared with a phone call. She treated them like students, not monsters. Like humans, not myths. After class, he approached her. "Your methodology is interesting. Your English is perfect," she countered. "Why are you here?" He smiled a real smile, not the cold one his enemies saw before they vanished. "Maybe I wanted to see who was brave enough to tell my lieutenant that his pronunciation of negotiation sounded like negotiator. In our business, the difference matters. In every business, precision matters," she replied, packing up her materials. "Words have power." "Yes," he said quietly. "They do." That's how it started. Not with grand romantic gestures, but with words. With conversations that stretched long after class ended. With him showing up at her small office near Itaewon with coffee and questions that had nothing to do with English grammar. With her slowly realizing that the most dangerous man in Seoul was also the loneliest. He existed between worlds too international for traditional Korean society, too tied to the criminal underworld for legitimate circles. His family expected him to marry strategically, to solidify alliances through bloodlines. His father had already selected candidates, daughters of rival bosses, heiresses to political dynasties. But Woo Jin had spent his whole life doing what was expected, building the empire, expanding the influence, becoming the monster everyone needed him to be. With Lily, he could just be a man. Their courtship was secret, hidden from his family, who would see her as a threat to their carefully laid plans. Hidden from her small circle of expat friends, who would never understand. They met in crowded markets where they could be anonymous. In small restaurants in neighborhoods where no one knew the Black Dragon Syndicate's boss by sight. She showed him how to make proper American breakfast pancakes in her tiny apartment kitchen. He taught her the real history of Seoul's neighborhoods, which buildings were fronts, which businesses were legitimate, where the invisible lines of territory were drawn. "How do you keep track of it all?" she asked one night as they walked through Hongdae, just another couple in the crowd. "The same way you keep track of irregular verbs," he said. "Pattern recognition. Everything has rules. Even chaos. 6 months of stolen moments. 6 months of him learning what it meant to be seen rather than feared. 6 months of her discovering that danger could wear a gentle face. When he proposed, it wasn't with a public display or a expensive ring. It was in her apartment at 2 a.m., after he'd shown up bleeding from a fight, and she'd bandaged his knuckles without asking questions she knew he couldn't answer. "Marry me," he said simply. "I know I shouldn't ask. I know what my world will do to you. But marry me anyway." She should have said no. Should have recognized the warning signs. Should have understood that fairy tales don't work when one person is a criminal and the other is trying to build a legitimate life. Instead, she said yes. They married in secret, a small ceremony with 2 witnesses he trusted with his life. No family, no celebration. Just vows spoken in a private room, binding them together in a way that would later make their separation so devastating. For 3 months, she was his wife. Hidden, protected, loved. He bought her a small bakery near her apartment. Flour and grace so she'd have something of her own. "Every queen needs a kingdom," he'd said. "Even if it's just flour and sugar." She'd laughed, but she'd taken the gift, built it into something warm and welcoming, a place that smelled like butter and vanilla instead of gunpowder and fear. Then Minho made his move. Woojin's younger brother had always lived in his shadow. Second son, second choice, second in everything that mattered. He'd watched Woojin's secret marriage with calculating eyes, seeing not love but opportunity. While Woojin was in Tokyo handling a territorial dispute, Minho approached Lily at the bakery, played the concerned brother-in-law perfectly. "I need to show you something," he said, sliding his phone across the counter. Photos of Woojin with a beautiful Korean woman at a restaurant. More photos of them at what looked like a family gathering. "Her name is Park Seo-yeon, daughter of the Busan syndicate boss." Lily's hands trembled as she scrolled. "What is this?" "The marriage your husband's family has been arranging for 2 years. Minho's voice was gentle. "Poisonous. He was always going to marry her. You were a distraction, a phase. Surely you knew that." Every insecurity Lily had ever felt about being foreign, about not belonging, came rushing back. "No. He wouldn't. He's too kind to tell you himself." Minho leaned in. "Leave now, quietly, and you'll be taken care of. Make a scene and, well, you've seen what happens to people who become problems for this family." He left her with divorce papers, her signature line marked, Woojin's signature already there, or so it appeared. She signed them through tears, packed her apartment that night, bought a ticket to Los Angeles. But she only made it as far as the airport before she realized she couldn't leave Korea. This was home. The baby growing inside her, discovered just days before, was half Korean. She wouldn't run to America. She'd disappear into Seoul instead, into neighborhoods where the Black Dragon Syndicate didn't operate, where she could be invisible. Her grandmother's friend had a bakery in a quiet district. They needed help. Lily went there, using her Korean name, the one Woojin had chosen for their marriage certificate. Han Lily. Working in the back, hiding in plain sight. 7 months. 7 months of believing Woojin had chosen empire over love. 7 months of him believing she'd abandoned him, gone back to America, disappeared. 7 months of Minho carefully managing the lie, intercepting messages, feeding false information to both sides. Until this moment. Until fate or coincidence or sheer bad luck brought Woojin into a bakery 3 miles from his headquarters, craving something sweet before a violent meeting. Until his eyes met hers across a counter, and 7 months of lies began to unravel. Now, with his hand on her wrist and recognition dawning in his eyes, everything is about to change. Because Woojin didn't sign those papers, and Lily never stopped being his wife. His hand remained on her wrist, and Lily felt the world tilting sideways. The bakery suddenly felt too small, the air too thin. 7 months of carefully constructed safety collapsing like a house of cards. "Whose child, Lily?" Woojin's voice was dangerously soft, the kind of soft that preceded violence in his world. But his eyes were doing something she didn't expect. They were cataloging, calculating dates, counting backward. "I need to leave." She tried to pull away, but his grip tightened fractionally. Not enough to hurt, just enough to keep her there. Please. You got what you wanted. The divorce. The clean break. Just let me. Divorce? The word came out sharp. Confused. His other hand moved to his jacket pocket, and Lily flinched. Old instincts screaming that when men like him reached into their jackets, people died. But he only pulled out his phone. His thumb moved across the screen with practiced efficiency, and she saw his expression shift from confusion to something darker, something that looked like rage, but not directed at her. One of his men appeared at his shoulder without being summoned. Woojin spoke in rapid Korean, too low and fast for her to catch all of it, but she heard Minho, and find him, and now. The man disappeared like smoke. Clear the bakery, Woojin said, louder now. Everyone out. Close the door. No one enters until I say. His men moved with terrifying efficiency. Money was placed on tables for unfinished coffees. Customers were ushered out with polite but unyielding firmness. One woman tried to take a photo with her phone. It was removed from her hand before she could press the button. Deleted. Returned. Within 90 seconds, the bakery was empty, except for the two of them and the men now stationed outside like sentries. Lily's heart hammered against her ribs. This was it. This was the moment Minho had warned her about. When she became a problem to be solved. When the foreigner who'd gotten pregnant by Seoul's most dangerous man had to be erased. She broke away from him, stumbling backward toward the kitchen. Toward the back door. Toward any escape route that didn't end with her disappearing into the Han River. Don't. Woojin moved to block her path, positioning himself between her and the front entrance. Don't run from me. What are you going to do? The words came out broken, terrified. Her hands cradled her belly protectively. I'll leave Seoul. I'll go to Busan. Jeju. America. Anywhere you want. Just please, the baby didn't ask for any of this. He froze. Actually froze. Like she'd struck him. You think I'm here to hurt you? Aren't you? Tears burned her eyes. I'm the mistake that needs cleaning up. The foreign woman who got pregnant and threatened everything. Minho said. Minho. He said his brother's name like a curse. Like a death sentence. What exactly did Minho tell you? The gentleness in his voice was somehow more terrifying than anger would have been. Because it meant he was thinking, planning. And when Woojin planned, people's entire lives disappeared. That you needed a real wife, she whispered. Someone Korean. Someone who could help the family. That I was just temporary. Something cracked in his expression. Something that looked like devastation before his mask slammed back into place. He pulled out his phone again, fingers moving with violent precision. He turned the screen toward her. It was a tracking app. A red dot blinking on a map of Los Angeles International Airport. Next to it, a passport scan. Her passport. The timestamp read 7 months ago, the day she'd gone to the airport before changing her mind. I've been looking for you, he said quietly, since the day you vanished. 3 continents, 16 private investigators. I thought you'd left Korea. I thought you'd left me. If you despise men who use their power to intimidate women instead of protecting them, hit that subscribe button right now. Comment, I stand for respect, to show you're not on the side of fear. The screen blurred through Lily's tears as the truth started to penetrate. But before she could process it, before she could ask the questions forming on her tongue, Woojin was pulling out a chair for her. Sit, before you fall. She sank into it, legs shaking. He crouched in front of her, eye level now instead of looming. The position made him look less like the dragon everyone feared, and more like the man she'd fallen in love with. Do you remember, he said quietly, the first time we met? She did. God, she did. It had been 18 months ago, in a cramped classroom above a coffee shop in Itaewon. She'd been contracted to teach business English to what she'd been told were private sector executives. The kind of vague description that should have been a red flag, but the pay was triple her usual rate, and her student loans weren't going to pay themselves. The men who showed up looked like they'd stepped out of a crime thriller. Sharp suits, sharper eyes, the kind of posture that came from expecting violence. She'd learned later they were lieutenants in the Black Dragon Syndicate, men whose English needed polish for international dealings that existed in legal gray areas. She'd been terrified that first day, But she'd learned early that showing fear in Korea, especially as a foreign woman, invited disrespect. So she'd stood at that whiteboard and corrected their grammar like they were university students, not men who could make her disappear. Woojin had appeared in the third week. He'd sat in the back, arms crossed, watching her explain the difference between eliminate and remove to a room full of criminals who knew both words intimately. She'd felt his eyes on her the entire lesson, calculating, assessing. After class, while the others filed out, he'd approached. "Your Korean is excellent. Your English is perfect," she'd replied, packing her materials. "Why are you here?" "Maybe I wanted to meet the woman brave enough to mark up my lieutenant's homework in red pen." His mouth had curved slightly. "He's killed people for less. Then he should have studied harder." She'd met his eyes directly, refusing to be intimidated even as her heart raced. "Words matter in business. Even your business." Something had shifted in his expression, like he'd been testing her and she'd passed without knowing the exam was happening. "Have coffee with me. I don't date clients." "I'm not your client. I already speak English." He'd paused at the door. "I own this building, and the one next to it, and the one where you teach children on Tuesday afternoons. I'm not asking as a client, Miss Morgan. I'm asking as a man who'd like to know you better." She should have said no. Should have recognized the danger. Should have understood that men who owned half of Itaewon didn't ask for coffee without ulterior motives. But there'd been something in his eyes. Something lonely, something human beneath the power and the reputation. "One coffee," she'd said. Public place, daylight. One coffee had become two. Two became dinner. Dinner became late-night walks through markets where they could be anonymous in the crowds. He'd shown her the soul that existed beneath the tourist facade, the invisible city where territory lines were drawn in blood and respect. She'd shown him what it meant to be seen as a person instead of a weapon, to have someone ask about his day without wanting something, to laugh without calculation. 3 months later, he'd proposed in her tiny apartment at 2 a.m., his knuckles bandaged from a fight she didn't ask about. They'd married quietly, just 2 witnesses in a private room. No family, no celebration. Just vows that bound them together in a way that made everything that came after so much more devastating. For 3 months, she'd been his wife, hidden but cherished. He'd bought her the bakery, flour and grace as a wedding gift. "Every queen needs a kingdom," he'd said, "even if it's made of butter and sugar." His family hadn't known. His father had been arranging a strategic marriage for years, alliances built on bloodlines and territory. Woojin had been stalling, making excuses, buying time to figure out how to introduce a foreign wife into a world that valued tradition above everything. "They'll come around," he'd promised her one night, holding her close in the darkness. "Once they meet you. Once they see what I see." But Lily had heard the doubt beneath his certainty, had seen how carefully he kept her separate from his other life. And every day that passed without him telling his family about her, that old familiar feeling grew stronger. She didn't belong. She would never belong. Minho had sensed that weakness like a shark scenting blood. He'd come to the bakery on a Wednesday afternoon, exactly 7 months and 3 weeks ago. Woojin was in Tokyo, handling a territorial dispute that required his physical presence. Lily had been alone, closing up early because of the nausea that had been plaguing her for weeks. Sister-in-law. Minho's smile had been perfect, concerned, gentle. "We need to talk." She'd let him in, relieved to see a familiar face, to have some connection to the husband who couldn't even acknowledge her existence publicly. "Is Woojin okay? Did something happen in Tokyo?" "He's fine. But I need to show you something." He'd slid his phone across the counter with the careful deliberation of someone delivering a killing blow. "Her name is Park So-yeon, daughter of the Busan syndicate boss." The photos had looked so real. Woojin at an elegant restaurant with a beautiful Korean woman. Woojin at what appeared to be a family gathering, the woman's hand on his arm. Woojin smiling at her with warmth Lily recognized because she'd thought that warmth was hers alone. "I don't understand." Her hands had trembled as she scrolled. "What is this?" "The marriage contract his father signed 2 years ago." Minho's voice had been so kind, so poisonous. The alliance that will secure our family's position for the next generation. Surely you knew this was always the plan. No. He wouldn't, we're married, You were a phase. Minho had leaned in, lowering his voice like he was sharing a painful truth for her own good. A beautiful distraction before he did what was necessary. He's too kind to tell you himself, too guilty to end it cleanly, but if you stay, you'll destroy him. Every insecurity Lily had carried her entire life in Korea came flooding back. The sidelong glances on the subway. The way business contacts addressed her male assistant instead of her. The 1,000 small cuts that reminded her she would always be Oegukin outsider. His father will never accept you, Minho continued. The organization will never follow a leader with a foreign wife. You'll be the reason he loses everything he's built. Everything his family has built for 3 generations. He'd produce divorce papers then. Her signature line blank. Woojin's signature already there, or what looked like his signature. Perfect forgery that she'd had no reason to question. Sign these and leave quietly. You'll be taken care of financially. Stay, and... He'd let the threat hang unspoken. You've seen what happens to people who become problems for this family. She'd signed through tears. Packed that night. Discovered the pregnancy the next morning at a clinic near the airport. Minho used Lily's insecurity to destroy a family. If you can't stand manipulators who lie to get ahead, smash the like button. Let's see how many of us value honesty over power. Now, sitting in the empty bakery with Woojin crouched in front of her, Lily felt the full weight of Minho's betrayal crashing down. 7 months. 7 months of believing she'd been nothing but a mistake to be erased. I never signed divorce papers. Woojin's voice was steady, but she could hear the rage simmering beneath. I came home from Tokyo to an empty apartment. Your phone disconnected. Your passport flagged at Incheon Airport. I thought, his jaw tightened. I thought you'd realized what I was. What being with me would cost you. That you'd chosen safety over me. But the papers, your signature, forged. He pulled out his phone again, swiping through screens with controlled fury. My brother has had access to my office for years. My personal seal, documents I've signed. It would have been easy for him. He turned the phone to show her a legal document. This is our marriage certificate. Still valid, still registered. You've been my wife this entire time. The room spun. Lily gripped the edge of the table, trying to process. Why? Why would he do this? Because I told my father about you the day before I left for Tokyo. Woojin's expression was carved from stone. I told him I was married, that there would be no strategic alliance with the Parks or anyone else, that you were my choice and that was final. Oh God. The pieces were clicking into place with horrible clarity. He needed you to marry Park Se-yeon. He needed the alliance. He needed me out of the way. Woojin stood, began pacing like a caged predator. With you gone and me divorced, he could push the Busan marriage again. Position himself as the stable choice if I remained too distracted by a foreign woman who'd abandon me. Classic strategic play. Remove the variable that doesn't fit the plan. Lily's hands moved to her belly, protective and devastated. 7 months. We lost 7 months because of his lies. I've had investigators searching for you in Los Angeles, San Francisco, every city where you had connections. His voice cracked slightly. I thought you'd gone back to America, started over, wanted nothing to do with me or this life. I was 3 miles from your headquarters. A broken laugh escaped her. Working in a bakery in Songdong, using my Korean name, hiding from a threat that didn't exist, while I was tracking your passport across the Pacific. Woojin stopped pacing, turned to face her fully. While I was imagining you safe and free somewhere without me, while I was respecting what I thought was your choice to leave. The cruelty of it hit them both simultaneously. Minho had played them perfectly, weaponizing Lily's insecurities and Woojin's guilt, making them each believe the other had chosen to walk away. The baby. Woojin's eyes dropped to her belly again, and she saw something raw flash across his face. When did you know? The morning after I signed the papers. At a clinic near Incheon. Tears streamed down her face now, unchecked. I was going to leave. Go to America. But I couldn't. Korea is home. And the baby, our baby, deserved to know where half of them came from. So you stayed. Alone. Pregnant. Thinking I wanted you gone. His hands clenched into fists. While I was searching for you. While I was... He cut himself off, but she heard what he didn't say. While I was grieving you. 7 months of suffering on both sides. 7 months of a child growing without a father who desperately wanted to be there. 7 months of careful deception orchestrated by someone who saw people as chess pieces. Lily felt something shift inside her, not the baby, but something deeper. The grief and anger finally breaking through 7 months of survival mode. The grief hit her like a physical wave, and suddenly Lily couldn't breathe. 7 months of holding everything together, of being strong alone, of building walls around her heart to protect herself and the baby. It all cracked open at once. And then the pain came. Sharp. Visceral. A tightening across her abdomen that made her gasp and double over. Not the usual Braxton Hicks contractions she'd grown used to. This was different. Wrong. Lily. Woojin was at her side instantly, his hands steadying her. What's wrong? I don't. Another wave of pain cut off her words. Her vision blurred at the edges. Something's not right. She felt wetness and looked down with growing horror. Not blood, thank God, but her body was rebelling against the stress, the shock, the emotional overload of 7 months of lies unraveling in minutes. Her knees buckled. Woojin caught her before she hit the floor, moving with a speed that shouldn't have been possible for a man his size. One arm swept under her knees, the other supporting her back, lifting her against his chest like she weighed nothing. For the first time since she'd known him, she saw fear in his eyes. Real, raw terror that the monster of Seoul couldn't hide behind any mask. Hospital! Now! His voice cracked across the bakery like a whip. The door burst open and his men appeared. Get the car. Clear the route. Call ahead to Seoul National VIP Wing. Tell them we're coming in hot with a pregnant woman in distress. Woojin, Another contraction seized her, stronger this time. 7 months. Too early. Much too early. Don't talk. Just breathe. He was already moving, carrying her through the bakery with swift, purposeful strides. Stay with me, Lily. Stay with me. One of his men was on the phone, rapid-fire Korean. She couldn't process through the pain and panic. Another held the door open. A black Mercedes appeared at the curb as if summoned. Door already open. Woojin slid into the back seat with her still cradled in his arms, refusing to let her go even to settle her on the seat. He held her against his chest, one hand pressing her head to his shoulder, the other splayed protectively across her belly. Drive. Fast. His voice was steel and ice. I don't care what you have to do. Get us there in 10 minutes. The car lurched forward. Through her haze of pain, Lily felt Woojin's heart hammering against her ear. Felt the slight tremor in his hands that he couldn't quite control. The man who faced down rival syndicates without flinching was shaking because she was in pain. 7 months, he murmured into her hair, so quiet she almost didn't hear over the engine. I should have been there. Should have protected you. Should have... You didn't know. Her voice came out weak. Neither of us knew. I should have looked closer to home. His grip tightened fractionally. Should have questioned why you'd leave everything. Should have seen... Another contraction cut through her, stronger and longer than before. She couldn't stop the cry that escaped, her hands clutching at his suit jacket. Faster. Woojin's command was absolute. The car accelerated, weaving through traffic with precision that suggested the driver had done this before. How far? 6 minutes, boss. Make it 4. Through the window, Lily saw traffic parting, saw cars pulling aside even before they reached them, saw the invisible hand of Woojin's influence clearing their path. The power she'd once found terrifying now focused entirely on getting her to safety. His phone was pressed to his ear now, his voice dropping to that dangerous soft tone. This is Woojin. I'm bringing my pregnant wife to the VIP wing. Have your best obstetrician ready. Have the head of obstetrics ready. Have whoever you need ready, because if anything happens to her or my child, I will burn that hospital to the ground. No pregnant woman should ever have to go through this level of stress alone. If you believe in protecting mothers at all costs, hit subscribe. Comment protect the family if you're rooting for Lily. The car tore through Seoul's streets, but inside the leather interior, there were two versions of Woojin existing simultaneously. The man cradling Lily, murmuring reassurances in Korean and English, pressing kisses to her sweat-dampened forehead, and the dragon, making phone calls with a voice that promised complete and utter destruction. "Stay with me," he whispered to her between contractions, his hand rubbing slow circles on her back. Then, phone to his ear, voice dropping to absolute zero. "Park. It's Woojin. I need you to freeze every account associated with Minho. Every one, every offshore holding, every investment. I want him financially dead in the next 10 minutes. Lily groaned through another wave of pain, and his attention snapped back to her immediately. "Breathe, baby. Just breathe. We're almost there." His hand found hers, letting her squeeze until his knuckles went white. The phone rang. He answered without looking. "Legal. File a formal severance from the family registry. Minho is no longer a park. I want the documents filed tonight. I don't care what it costs or who you have to wake up." "Woojin," she gasped. Not while. He took 7 months from us." His voice was gentle with her, lethal on the phone. "He made you believe I wanted you gone. Made you go through this pregnancy alone. Terrified. Thinking you were protecting our child from me." The last word came out jagged. He doesn't get to keep the family name after that. Another call. Another order. The safe house in Gangnam. The one Minho thinks I don't know about. Burn it. Not literally, I'm not a savage, but I want every piece of furniture on the street by morning. Every asset seized. Every protection revoked. The hospital came into view. A gleaming tower of glass and steel. The car didn't slow for the entrance. Didn't stop at the emergency bay. It drove straight to a private entrance where doctors were already waiting with a wheelchair and a gurney. But before they reached the doors, Woojin made one more call. This one different. This one personal. "Father." A pause. "I'm at Seoul National with Lily, my wife, who's 7 months pregnant with your grandchild. The wife I told you about before Tokyo." His voice was pure steel. "Minho forged divorce papers and made her disappear. He's been lying to both of us for 7 months. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to choose, right now, him or me. The lying snake who tried to manipulate your succession, or the son who's about to give you your first legitimate grandchild." Lily heard a voice on the other end, sharp and demanding. Woojin's jaw tightened. "No. You don't get time to consider. You don't get to weigh the politics. She's in premature labor because of what he did. So you choose now, or you lose us both." A pause. "Good. Then I want Minho stripped of everything by morning. Every title, every holding, every connection. I want him to feel what Lily felt alone and powerless." He ended the call as the car stopped. The doors opened and medical staff swarmed, but Woojin didn't let go. He carried her out himself, placing her on the gurney with a gentleness that contradicted every order he'd just given. "I've got you," he said, his hand never leaving hers as they wheeled her inside. "I'm not leaving. Not for a second." Behind them, his phone continued buzzing with confirmations. Accounts frozen. Properties seized. A brother erased from existence with the same efficiency Woojin applied to all his enemies. Woojin is taking everything from the man who hurt his wife. If you think Minho deserves exactly what he's getting, hit that like button. Karma is being served, and it is delicious. The VIP suite at Seoul National Hospital looked more like a luxury hotel room than a medical facility. Soft lighting, cream-colored walls, a private bathroom with marble fixtures, but the monitors beeping steadily beside the bed, the IV line running into Lily's arm, the fetal heart rate display, those were all too real. The doctors had managed to stop the contractions. "Severe stress-induced episode," they'd said. "Preeclampsia warning signs. Complete bed rest required." They'd given her medication to protect the baby's lungs in case of early delivery, steroids that made her feel jittery and strange. But the baby's heartbeat was strong, steady, a sound that had made Woojin's eyes close with relief so profound it looked like pain. That had been 3 hours ago. Now it was deep into the night, the city lights of Seoul glittering beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows. The doctors had left after the 5th time checking vitals. The nurses had learned to knock softly before entering, and Woojin hadn't moved from the chair beside her bed. He'd shed his jacket somewhere between the car and the emergency entrance. His shirt sleeves were rolled up, his tie loosened and eventually discarded. He held her hand with both of his, thumb tracing absent patterns on her knuckles. "You should rest," Lily said quietly. Her voice was hoarse from earlier, from crying and pain, and the overwhelming cascade of revelations. "I will when you sleep." His eyes never left her face. "The doctor said you need rest." "So rest." "I can't." She looked down at where his hands enveloped hers. "Every time I close my eyes, I see the last 7 months. Everything I believed. Everything I don't." His voice was rough. "Don't blame yourself for believing a lie designed to exploit your deepest fears." Minho is a snake. He knew exactly what to say. Exactly what to show you. Silence settled between them, broken only by the steady beep of monitors and the distant sounds of the hospital at night. Then Woojin did something unexpected. He released one of her hands and moved it slowly, carefully, to rest on her belly. His palm spread wide across the swell where their child grew. "I'm sorry." His voice cracked on the words. "I'm so sorry I wasn't there." Lily started to respond, but he wasn't talking to her. "I should have protected you both better." His other hand joined the first, cradling her belly with devastating gentleness. "Should have made sure nothing could touch you. Your mother was alone because of my failure, because I didn't see the threat in my own family." A tear tracked down his cheek, then another. The monster of Seoul, Seoul's most feared man, crying openly in the dim hospital light. "I missed so much already." His voice broke completely. 7 months of knowing you existed, of being able to talk to you, to tell you that you're wanted, so desperately wanted. His forehead dropped to rest against her belly. "I'm here now. I'm not leaving. Not ever. You're safe. Your mother's safe. I promise you." Lily's hand moved to his hair, fingers threading through the dark strands, her own tears falling silently. "I was going to name the baby after my father if it's a boy," she whispered. "Michael. But use a Korean name you chose." His shoulders shook. "And if it's a girl? I don't know yet, I thought." Her voice caught. "I thought I'd have to choose everything alone." He lifted his head, and his face was raw with emotion she'd never seen him show. Not when they'd married. Not even in their most intimate moments. This was grief and joy and rage and love all tangled together. Never alone again. He brought her hand to his lips, pressed a kiss to her palm. "I don't care what it costs. What I have to burn down. You and this child are my priority. The only priority. 3 weeks of bed rest. 3 weeks of Woojin working from a laptop in her hospital room, conducting business in low tones while she dozed. 3 weeks of him reading parenting books in Korean and English, making notes in the margins. 3 weeks of his hand on her belly every night, talking to their child about everything and nothing. 3 weeks of Minho's complete erasure from the family. The news had spread through Seoul's underworld like wildfire. The younger Park brother had been disowned, his name stripped from the registry, his accounts frozen, his safe houses emptied. He disappeared whether by choice or force. No one dared ask. Then, at 37 weeks and 2 days, Lily woke at 3 a.m. to her water breaking. "Woojin." She gripped his arm where he'd fallen asleep in the chair beside her bed, still holding her hand. "It's time." He was alert instantly, every trace of sleep vanishing. "You're sure?" Another contraction answered for her, stronger than anything during the false labor weeks ago. Real, inevitable. Their baby was coming. The hospital staff moved with practiced efficiency, but Woojin was faster. He was beside her through every contraction, letting her squeeze his hand until his bones ground together, breathing with her when the pain made her forget how, wiping her forehead with cool cloths when the fever of labor set in. "I can't," she gasped during the worst of it, hours into labor when exhaustion threatened to overwhelm everything. "I can't do this." "You can." His forehead pressed to hers, his voice steady and certain. You've survived 7 months alone, thinking I wanted you gone. You've survived hiding in fear and building a life from nothing. You can survive this. And I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere. Promise? I promise. The final push felt like it split her in two. Then suddenly, miraculously, there was a cry. Not her cry. A new voice. Furious and strong and absolutely perfect. A boy. The doctor lifted their son, still connected by the umbilical cord, red-faced and wailing. A healthy boy. They placed him on Lily's chest, and the world narrowed to this. Her son's weight, warm and real, his tiny fists clenching, his face so much Woojin in the shape of his nose, the set of his jaw. But when he opened his eyes, they were hers, light brown with flecks of gold. Woojin's hand covered them both, his face transformed by wonder. He's perfect. You're perfect. Do you want to hold him? For the first time since she'd known him, the dragon looked uncertain. Afraid he might break something precious. He's yours too. She guided his hands, helped him take their son. Watched as Woojin cradled the baby against his chest with infinite care. Ji-woo. Woojin said quietly. For wisdom and protection. Michael Ji-woo Park. The door opened. Lily tensed instinctively, but Woojin's expression said he'd been expecting this. An older man entered, sharp-featured and elegant in traditional Korean formal wear despite the early hour. Woojin's father. She recognized him from photos, though they'd never met. He stopped at the foot of the bed, his eyes moving from Lily to the baby in Woojin's arms. The silence stretched, loaded with judgment she'd expected, feared, prepared herself to face. Then he bowed. A deep, formal bow of respect. Daughter-in-law, he said in Korean. Forgive this old man for arriving late to meet his grandson. Tears burned Lily's eyes. Not daughter-in-law with disdain. Not foreign woman. Daughter. And forgive me, he continued, for not seeing my younger son's poison until it nearly destroyed my family. His gaze hardened. That name will not be spoken in my presence again. Family isn't about bloodlines or nationality. It's about who shows up. If you agree that toxic family members like Minho should be cut off, subscribe now. Comment real family below. 6 weeks after Ji-woo's birth, Woojin told Lily to wear something beautiful. Not for a quiet dinner or a private celebration. For war. War? She'd looked up from where she was nursing their son in the nursery of their penthouse, no longer her tiny apartment, but a fortress 50 floors above Seoul, with bulletproof glass and armed guards. The kind fought with silk and ceremony instead of bullets. He'd kissed her forehead, then Ji-woo's. Trust me. Now she stood in a private room adjacent to the grand ballroom of the Shilla Hotel, wearing a custom hanbok in deep crimson and gold. Traditional Korean formal wear, but modernized the lines elegant. The silk embroidered with phoenixes rising from flames. A queen's garment. Her hands shook as she adjusted the heavy fabric. Through the walls, she could hear the murmur of voices. Every major crime family in Seoul had been summoned. The Busan Parks, the Incheon Kims, the Jeju Chaos. Rival syndicates who'd agreed to temporary truce to witness whatever Woojin had planned. You don't have to do this. Woojin appeared behind her in the mirror, devastating in a black suit with traditional accents. I can introduce you privately. Gradually, the way I should have done from the beginning. No. Lily turned to face him. No more hiding. No more questions about whether I belong. You told me once that I was your queen, so let's make it official. Ji-woo slept peacefully in a nearby bassinet, watched over by 2 guards Woojin trusted with his life. Their son, hours away from being introduced to a world that would either accept him or mark him as illegitimate. Woojin took her hands, brought them to his lips. The moment we walk through those doors, everything changes. They'll know you're not Korean. They'll see Ji-woo as mixed. Some will accept it. Others will see it as weakness. Then let them try. She met his eyes. I didn't survive 7 months alone. Didn't survive Minho's lies. Didn't survive bringing our son into this world just to hide in the shadows. I'm done being invisible. Something fierce and proud flashed across his face. Then let's show them exactly who you are. The doors opened. The ballroom fell silent as they entered. Every head turned. Every eye tracked their progress down the central aisle toward the raised platform where Woojin's father waited. Lily felt the weight of their stares, some curious, some hostile, some carefully neutral. She kept her head high, kept her hand steady in Woojin's, kept walking. When they reached the platform, Woojin turned to face the assembled families. His voice carried without effort, authority in every syllable. You've been summoned here to witness a truth that some tried to bury. He pulled Lily forward, his hand at the small of her back. This is Lily Morgan Park, my wife, married legally and traditionally 8 months ago. The mother of my son and heir, Michael Jiwoo Park. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Shock, disapproval, but also surprisingly some nods of acknowledgement. For months, my brother attempted to dissolve this union through deception and forged documents. Woojin's voice dropped to that dangerous soft tone. He failed, and in doing so, he forfeited his place in this family and this organization. Woojin's father stepped forward then, carrying Jiwoo. He placed their son in Lily's arms, then bowed to her in front of everyone. The symbolic weight of it, acceptance from the patriarch, reverberated through the room. My daughter-in-law is family, the old man announced. My grandson is my heir's heir. Anyone who questions this questions me. Woojin's arm wrapped around Lily's waist, possessive and protective. She is under my protection, completely, absolutely, and I want to be very clear about what that means. His gaze swept the room, touching on every family head, every lieutenant, every person who might dare challenge them. Anyone who looks at her sideways answers to me. Anyone who threatens her or my son will discover exactly why they call me the dragon. Silence. Then, slowly, the Busan boss stood and bowed. Acknowledgement, respect.